what type of content should we be focusing on to attract new customers? So obviously there's lots of different ways to do that, especially if you're new or if you've been existing. What are some good ways to get new people in?
As far as, so basically they're asking what type of content they should be using to attract new people. Is that what the question is?
Yeah, this is kind of a general question. I didn't know if they meant like social media wise, or obviously we've talked a lot about Google My Business and kind of focusing on trying to at least create some SEO content, which I think would be probably one of the first things to do, like we've mentioned before, is to make sure that you built out your Google business page and then actually loading content into that. It's not, there's places to put images and videos and text, might not use it as much as maybe a social media. So at least that's where I would start, and I'm assuming you probably would agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The thing that threw me a little bit was they were talking about new customers. So what I'm thinking they're trying to do is attract people that aren't currently aware of their page or aren't following their page, things like that. So one of the things I think about is a lot of times we get in this silo with whatever industry you're in. We get in a silo where we tend to think about things all the same way. When you're trying to attract new people in that are interested, you have to try to take yourself out of your current seat and think about it from somebody that's watching it. Why would somebody want to watch your content? Why would somebody want to follow your page? Why would somebody be interested in what you're doing? In your mind, you may think, oh, it's obvious I do X and Y and Z. Why wouldn't they want to follow me? But the reality is you have to give somebody a compelling reason, especially with all the noise there is online right now. Whether it's, you have to grab somebody's attention quick, and then you have to give them a reason to stay. So one of the things you see that's working really well for people is to show people things in somewhat of an entertaining way. I've been consuming a lot of different influencer content recently to just try to find some trends and things like that. And it's not always the most dynamic person that's getting the most followers or whatever, but it's with a person that kind of taps into what people are interested in and then delivers content that feeds into that. So if you're in the automotive window film industry, or window tint industry, don't just try to give them a picture of a tinted car and say, buy window tint from me. I mean, give them a reason why, like something where you're going to grab somebody's attention and then they're going to see your content and say, I want to know more about that, or that's different than I've ever seen it explained before. I think that's how you're going to attract new people to your page. Ideally, think about it from a standpoint that if somebody has no interest in what you're doing at all, is the content you're creating or the ads you're creating or whatever you're doing compelling enough that somebody would care? Always ask yourself the question, take a step outside of your business and ask yourself the question, why should I care? I think if you ask yourself that and you don't have a really good answer, the chances are the person watching it also is not going to care.
Yeah, it's funny. As soon as you started mentioning that, to me, it's if you're going to look for new people, and obviously we've talked about Reels and TikToks and how that algorithm works, but I think the core of it is to be yourself, be the character that you are, be your personality. One of the guys I saw had crazy clothes, and typically that's either going to attract and pull people in, or it's going to repel people away. And typically that's what you want. And he made a comment about you don't want to be liked. You want to be either loved or hated. And so people are either going to love your content and they're going to like what you're saying, whether it's because of your personality or being eccentric, you've got crazy clothes, your hair is all colored. I know, like, I watch Ryan Pineda and he says that he has his hair every other week. It's a different color. He's a real estate guy. And he says the reason he did that was, one, it invoked a reaction from people. And it was one of those things, whether they hated the fact that he was changing his hair or they liked it. And I think,
man, it's funny you say that, because there's a guy that my friend and I both are aware of that's in the 4x4 overlanding community. And I'm not going to say his name because if anybody knows the person, I don't want, but the person actually, he's an older person, probably about my age, but he has his hair colored like in a different color than, like a non-natural color. And the crazy thing was, I didn't necessarily care for it. And my immediate reaction was like, why has this guy got his hair colored? Just like, and my buddy I was talking to had the same reaction, but we both knew who he was.
Yeah.
we both consumed some of his content, even though we both kind of had this not necessarily a positive feeling about the guy. We both knew, like when I mentioned him, we both knew who it was and we had both consumed his content. So to your point, he grabbed our attention. He was memorable. We remembered him. We consumed some of his content.
And I think even if it is something where you're running a tint shop or you have a small business, it's almost the fact that your product or service is secondary to who you are. And that's what we've been trying to do. Obviously we were talking about this before of taking this content, breaking it up, and hopefully we're finding the people that want to take this content in. Maybe we're not crazy. I try to switch up my shirt every time to make sure it's not the same. And so there's different things that we can do. But the fact is that we're trying to connect with people that are looking for this. And that's essentially what you want to be doing to find new people. It's you want to attract new people in by being yourself and not trying to just walk this line to try to please everybody, because everybody's not going to be your customer.
Well, and you hit the nail right on the head too with the statement, be yourself. Because I think if you have something like this person's colored hair or whatever the case may be, but it's true to who you are, or it's true to your personality, then I think go for it. But don't try to like come up with something like, I wonder if I did this, maybe I can grab some people's attention. It's got to be true to your DNA, or ultimately it's not going to resonate with people. So while I think you ought to be considering things that could grab somebody's attention and pull them in and engage them, don't do something that's not true to who you are just to try to gain, because ultimately that's not gonna, you got to be true. If you're really true to yourself, you're going to attract the right people potentially that are going to want to watch that content. So,
and people will typically sniff out if you're trying to be fake, or that's kind of, if it's something that you really want to do, it's going to wear you out. Like if it's not the person that you are, if you're not a high energy person and you come on here and you do all this, you're going to be burnt out after 2 or 3 times doing the different content. It's like, that's why just stick with who you are, but try to inform and educate and entertain as best you can, but do it in your way that's going to pull people in. And if you have other things that are going on, whether it's hair, clothes, music, or whatnot in the background, or you have crazy backgrounds, or you're in cool spots, you're going to pull people in. So that's at least what we try to be, authentic as best you can. But obviously, if you can be the fringes of yourself, because at the end, you're going to be pulling people that are going to attract you. And coming with that is you're going to have people that aren't going to like you, and that's okay. And that's part of the process. And you're, like I said, you're not going to get every person's dollar in the world out there. And we can't all be Apple or Amazon, and even them, they're not getting everybody that's in the world either. So it's one of those things. Just be yourself.
Yeah. And I think that, again, if you go to industry conferences, you do anything like that, ultimately people are going to meet you and things like that. So if you're totally not in person, is this persona that you put on, if you will, online, whatever, or if a customer comes into your shop, if you're a retail shop and they've been pulled in by this crazy social media persona you've created, and then they meet you and that's not who you are. So it's going to be a little bit of a disconnect. So I think you're always better off just trying to be yourself, for sure.